It was an honor when I was asked to be a speaker today. Even though I am not used to speaking in public, I've told myself I will do anything I can for Jared's memory. So I find myself doing things I could never have imagined before. I am known as a Gold Star mother. Most people do not know what that is. I did not know until I became one. The history of the Gold Star is that during the early days of World War I, households that had a family member in military service would hang service flags bearing a blue star, one for every member of the family in uniform. As the war progressed and men were killed in combat, there came about the accepted usage of covering the blue star with a gold star, showing that that family's loved one had given the supreme sacrifice for his country. The phrase Gold Star Mother came to designate a mother whose child has been lost in war. The term also applies to Gold Star dads and Gold Star families. At the conclusion of World War II, Congress established the Gold Star lapel pin to provide an appropriate means to identify families of service members who lost their lives while on active duty during any armed conflict in which the United States is engaged. The Department of Defense gives this Gold Star pin to the immediate family of fallen service members killed in action. Although less than an inch in size, these pins are full of meaning and emotion. They are not awards, they are symbols of honor. The pin's unique design incorporates symbols that indicate the family's loss. The laurel wreath border signifies valor. The purple field, the family's grief or mourning. The gold star to signify died in a combat theater. Daryl and I became Gold Star parents on December 12, 2005. It was a Monday, and I hadn't been at work long that morning in the clerk's office of the juvenile court at the courthouse when two soldiers in dress uniform came looking for me. Having a son in the Army deployed to Iraq, when I saw those soldiers, I immediately knew what they were there to tell me. It was better that I was at work and not home alone because I had people around who started taking care of me and getting a hold of Daryl, who worked for Jamison Electric and was working in Roanoke that day. But I want to remember the days that Jared lived, not the day he died. So I remember the active, busy little boy with the big smile who grew up here in Franklin County. He attended a daycare center right up on the hill there where Franklin Healthcare now is. While at Lee Wade and Rocky Mount Elementary, he played soccer and was in Cub Scouts. I think he could have gotten better grades sometimes, but he was intelligent and inquisitive, and he loved to read. Jared had a strong work ethic, and from when he was old enough, he always held a part-time job. He worked at Winn-Dixie when they opened their new store. He worked at Old Virginia Barbecue in the kitchen, at 40 West Food Fair pumping gas. That was when there were still people to pump your gas and clean your windshield. And at Jamison Electric as an electrician's helper. He was always concerned with being on time and doing his job right, never complaining. These traits carried over into his Army life. In 1999, Jared graduated Franklin County High School and began talking of the Army. I'm not sure what sparked this. He came up with it on his own. My father and my uncle served in Korea in 1952, but our family does not have a military background. After a year at Virginia Western, he enlisted in the Army at the age of 19. The tests they give you when you join the Army showed that he would be a good mechanic. We were a little surprised by this because as far as we knew, he had no interest in engines or vehicles. But I guess the Army knew what they were doing because he trained as a track vehicle mechanic and was stationed in Germany and deployed to Iraq with the 54th Combat Engineers for his first tour in 2003 during the initial invasion. He worked hard to keep the company's track vehicles in repair. He worked diligently in the desert heat day in and day out in conditions I can't even imagine. But he came to feel it wasn't enough. And this tells me the most about the man my son had become. While in Iraq, he decided to re-enlist as a cavalry scout because he wanted to do more. A fellow soldier remembers sitting with Jared after he made that very clear to him and the rest of the team. There was no changing his mind. That is what he wanted to do. Jared was a strong-willed individual. When his mind was made up, you could not change it. He retrained and was reassigned to the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Colorado. We were glad to have him back in the States, but he hadn't been with his new unit very long before they were sent to Iraq, and he went again. Out of his last 3 years, 2 were spent in Iraq. Jared was an only child, but he was devoted to the twins that lived next door and called them his sisters. Then in the Army, he got to be a brother to those around him, and for him to feel the love of being around the men he could call brothers. I think only you veterans who have served in a deployment like this can truly understand the close bonds made in such a situation. Jared found his place in the Army and planned to make it his career. Every time we saw him, we could tell a big difference in him, growing, maturing, more organized, more sure of himself, and it showed. When Jared was home on leave, he didn't talk all that much about Army things, at least to me. I think he just wanted to be at home and relax, and I just wanted to feed him and make his favorite foods. So I got some comments from his fellow soldiers. They called him Kubi, and this is what they say. He was the definition of a soldier, never questioning orders, willing to work his fingers to the bone, asking questions to gain knowledge, entertaining in your time off. That guy, you know, the one you say, "Hey, you going to the chow hall? Bring me a plate." The guy so full of knowledge he shocks you at times. He was loyal and committed to those on his crew and in his platoon, whether it was prepping for a mission, helping clean someone else's weapon, or him just hanging out, being Kubi. Another commented that Kubi could hold an intellectual conversation with you and without missing a beat, change the subject to who would beat up who between Superman and Spider-Man. He always had a way to make you laugh or smile with some off-the-wall comment or something that he would do. When it was time to work, he was always there to lend a helping hand to anyone that needed it. He helped get through every mission with his odd sense of humor and desire to learn. He was willing to talk to anyone about anything. We were quite fortunate to have Jared home on leave from Iraq just weeks before he was killed in action. He got to celebrate his last birthday at home, his 25th, with family and friends. We took him to the Roanoke Airport on Thanksgiving Day to fly back to Iraq. He was back there only a little over 2 weeks before he was killed when an improvised explosive device detonated as his Bradley fighting vehicle moved by. Their regular driver was on his leave back to the States, and the rest of his crew took turns driving. Only the driver didn't survive, and Jared just happened to be the driver that day. The details of Jared's death are not nearly as important as the details of his life. He had become a proud and dedicated young man serving his country and found what he loved to do. Jared received many awards and medals and has been honored in many ways. I think he would be amazed by all of this because I think I know what Jared would say. He would say that he was just doing his job. I have met many Gold Star moms, dads, and families throughout the state. We draw strength from one another through our common bond. So now, if you see someone wearing this Gold Star pin, you will know the meaning of it, and that they have a loved one that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. I wear my pin with pride, but also with pain, because freedom is not free. Throughout history, it has been paid for with the lives of our brave young men and women serving our country, who come from big cities and small towns all across America. May their sacrifices never be forgotten. Thank you.